back to the channel. We got a fun article today titled, "If you did these 17 things in the 60s and 70s, you were a hippie." With its beginnings in the early 1960s, the counterculture movement saw young people across the world advocating for peace and love. Influencing music, art, and fashion, hippies stood against the conservative social norms of the generations before them. Do you remember any of these 17 things done in the 1960s and 70s? It's possible you were a hippie. Thing number 1, attended Woodstock Music Festival. With music, art, and a peaceful ethos, Woodstock symbolized the pinnacle of hippie culture, attracting hundreds of thousands of festival goers. Musical performances such as Jimi Hendrix and The Who became legendary and have influenced music and culture in the decades since. Thing number 2 is lived in a commune. According to The Guardian, in the late 1960s and early 1970s, there was a vogue for communal living. It was a lifestyle that distilled hippie values, combining personal freedom and a desire to break with convention. Embracing communal living meant engaging in collective farming, shared meals, and communal decision making. Thing 3 is wore bell-bottoms. In a time of rebellion, bell-bottom jeans were a strong statement against the conservative clothing styles of previous generations and symbolized freedom from societal norms. Hippies combined the jeans with tie-dyed shirts, peasant blouses, and leather-fringed vests to create a distinctive style. Thing 4 is advocated for peace and love. Hippies stood for peace and love during a time of turbulent politics and often participated in peaceful protests and sit-ins against the Vietnam War. Peace and love were central to the hippie philosophy and influenced music, art, literature, and daily interactions with the community. Thing number 5 is practice meditation and yoga. Hippies integrated yoga and meditation into their daily lives as tools for self-exploration, mental clarity, and physical well-being. Time magazine says the benefits of meditation were widely studied at this time, and one study found that people meditating used 17% less oxygen, lowered heart rates, and produced increased brain waves that could help with sleep. Thing number 6 is experimented with psychedelic drugs. Psychedelic drugs shaped the aesthetics, music, and philosophies of the hippie movement and were used as means of personal and spiritual discovery in social settings or as part of artistic experiences. The drugs were illegal and not approved by wider society, creating challenges for those wanting to use them. Thing 7 is protested nuclear weapons. Engaging in creative and non-violent forms of protesting, hippies used music, art, and theatrical elements to stand against use of nuclear weapons. The global movement reflected the hippie commitment to peace and the belief in the power of collective action to bring about change. Thing 8 is traveled in VW buses. An icon of hippie culture, the VW bus symbolized freedom, adventure, and rejection of conventional values. Smithsonian Magazine said its boxy appearance, unlike anything the major auto manufacturers in Detroit were producing, became a symbol for counterculture types who wanted to stand out from the rest of the crowd. Thing 9 is listen to psychedelic rock. The psychedelic rock genre epitomized the hippie movement's love of music, using experimental sounds, innovative recording techniques, and lyrical themes of peace, love, and exploration. Live performances were also often accompanied by light shows and other forms of visual experiences. Thing 10 is participated in environmental movements. Hippie communities were early to engage with environmental activism, and they advocated for the protection of natural resources, opposition to pollution, and the promotion of sustainable living practices. This reflected the hippie ethos of living in harmony with nature and helped inspire future generations. Thing 11 is attended the Summer of Love. In 1967, thousands of hippies flocked to the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco to participate in a summer-long celebration of music, art, and free expression. The Guardian says young people traveled from across America and beyond, attracted by the promise of the chance to cast off conservative social values and experiment with drugs and sex. Thing 12 is practice free love. The concept of free love challenged traditional norms around relationships and sexuality, instead of advocating for sexual freedom, openness, and experimentation as forms of personal and social liberation. This influenced society, allowing for changing perceptions of love, sex, and relationships, and contributing to the broader sexual revolution of the 60s and 70s. Thing number 13 is created psychedelic art. Psychedelic art used bold colors, intricate patterns, and symbolic imagery to capture the vibrant, transcendent, and often surreal experiences associated with the hippie movement. It allowed the expression of inner experiences and had a significant influence on poster art, album covers, and fashion. Thing 14 is wore psychedelic and tie-dye clothing. Embracing psychedelic art and using fashion as an expression of individuality, tie-dye became synonymous with the hippie movement of the 1960s and 1970s. According to Vox, performers like Janis Joplin, John Sebastian, and Joe Cocker wore tie-dye on stage at Woodstock in 1969, cementing it as a key look in the iconic music festival. Thing 15 is followed a vegetarian or vegan diet. The popularity of vegetarian and vegan diets within hippie cultures reflected the values of compassion, nonviolence, and environmentalism. This influenced the food manufacturing industry, popularizing natural and organic foods and contributing to the growth of health food stores. Thing 16 is engaged in civil rights activism. Valuing social justice, hippies participated in civil rights activism in the fight against racial discrimination, segregation, and injustice in marginalized communities. Collaborating with diverse groups and individuals, hippies participated in marches, rallies, and acts of civil disobedience. And finally, thing number 17 is explored alternative religions and spirituality. Spirituality was a big part of the hippie culture, and they engaged with a variety of practices and beliefs outside of the mainstream Western religion. Eastern philosophies heavily featured in and helped to shape the identity and ethos of the hippie movement, influencing values, lifestyles, and communal practices. Alright, there you heard it. If you did these 17 things in the 60s and 70s, you were a hippie. What do you think? Did you guys do any of those things? I was born in 76, so I kind of missed the 60s and 70s for the most part. But I did hear about a lot of this stuff. Were you a hippie? Put it in the comment section. I'd be interested to hear about the movement if you partook in any of those things that we read about today. If you enjoyed this video, please take a second to give it a like. Go ahead and hit that like button now. And if you really enjoy this sort of content, please consider subscribing to the channel.